so much. I'm so glad to be here. And so yeah, garbage is my background and waste minimization. So anything about garbage, recycling, composting, I'm your gal. So I am the manager of sustainability here at Tarrant County College, part of Facilities Engineering Group. And I do have workbooks, and I have mobile workbooks available for everyone. So I just revised this, so it's very, very up to date. And the thing about composting is you always see the bumper stickers that say compost happens, right? But it takes a really long time, unless you do it right. So yes, you can absolutely just throw leaves and grass in a pile and just add it whenever, and it will eventually 5, 6, 7 years down the road, there will be compost on the bottom of that. So that's how that works. But what we're going to talk about today is how to speed up the process and have not compost but mulch. You have to actually sift it to have compost, but what we use most is mulch. How many of y'all, either you or your parents, go out every spring and buy bags and bags and bags of mulch? Okay, stop that. Don't do that anymore. We're going to fix that. You don't ever have to buy mulch again. It's just a waste, right? Because you're taking all your leaves and your grass, and you're putting them in bags, and you're sending them to the landfill, right? And then you buy mulch. Stop that. Don't do that anymore. We're going to absolutely fix that problem. So in the little workbook, we're just going to cover really high-level things like the fact that composting is really nature's way of recycling. It happens naturally, but we can, with some effort and with some knowledge, speed that up to where you can get usable compost in about 8 to 12 weeks. But it's a lot of work, and you have to be invested in it, but it is so much fun. So what are the benefits of backyard composting? You are diverting materials from the landfill. You're not putting them in a plastic bag and saying, because those are all natural resources. It saves money. You're not going out and buying mulch. And it improves your soil and plant health, conserves water, and all these other wonderful things. So why wouldn't we do it? Yes?
So with grass clippings, sometimes you do have like weeds that have the seeds
The
get
weed
in it.
seeds.
So do you
We will get to that. Yes, because we were talking about right before you came in, the cold composting is when you just kind of add stuff, and it's never going to heat up. Whatever you put in there, it's not going to heat up in order to get rid of any seeds. There was a campus in Dallas College that did some composting, and they put in tomatoes. And now wherever they spread that, tomatoes are popping up all over the campus. So, yay, birds love it. The birds are supremely happy about that. Okay, so cold composting just happens. But what we're going to talk about today is hot composting. And hot composting takes a little bit of effort. It takes really 2 people a lot of the time to do it. But it takes 5 things. It takes materials, mass, water, air, and time. Those are the 5 things you need. Now, the materials part gets a little complicated because there are 2 types of materials that you need. You need nitrogen and carbon. If you have all nitrogen, it'll just stink to high heaven and it won't do anything. If you just do carbon, it just won't do anything. But when you couple the 2 together, the microbes come in, the beneficial bugs, and you have got a party going on in your compost bin in your backyard, noiseless. The best neighbors you've ever had are in your compost pile. So what I have found, as I've been building compost for a while, if you have 10 bags of grass and 10 bags of leaves, that is the proportion, the formula is 30 to 1, 30 parts carbon to 1 part nitrogen. For some reason, 10 bags of each, 8 bags of each, whatever, just the same amount of each somehow meets that ratio. Now, if you don't get that much from mowing your yard or raking your leaves, you have neighbors who have not seen the light, and you can just go steal their stuff. They just take it off the curb and just use that. They will not come after you for that. So that's the hardest part, is getting together all the materials at once. Cold composting, you're just throwing it over there whenever you get it. To do hot composting, you are going to build a pile all at once, and you're not going to add or take away anything. Well, I take that back. You're going to add some water and air, but you're not going to add any more materials until it is finished.
So this isn't like adding your vegetable stuff. Okay.
So adding food is controversial. Who would have thought?
Even just like your carrot skin.
I have solutions for that that are better. Because if you try to put food scraps in your backyard composting bin, so many things can go wrong. It can smell bad and aggravate your neighbors. It could bring rats and aggravate your neighbors. It could just, so many things can go wrong. But if you take care of your food scraps in a couple of other different ways, it's so much easier and no odor, and it's amazing. So we'll get to that. So this is strictly for yard trimmings. We never call it waste because the connotation is if it's waste, why would we use it? So they're yard trimmings. We don't have leaves and grass at the same time, or brown leaves and green grass, right? But there are solutions, there are substitutes that you can do. So say in the summer, you want to build a compost pile, but you don't have any brown leaves. Now, you can save brown leaves. You can store them for years. And as long as they are by themselves, they will not break down. Grass, you cannot, because it gets slimy and disgusting, so you cannot save grass. So in the summer, if you're building a pile and you don't have any green leaves, you can use shredded paper. And you don't even need a shredder. If you don't have a shredder, you can just throw, and I used to say newspapers, but nobody has newspapers anymore at their houses, right? So your utility bills, all the junk mail you get, throw them in a trash can and use your weed eater and just shred up the paper. Get it as small as you possibly can, but don't use those cross-cut, the little tiny pieces, the cross-cut shredders, because when you pour that into your thing, it's going to blow all the way across your yard, and that's not helpful. So either the strip shredders or in the garbage can with the weed eater, you can shred it up. So that is your carbon substitute. Now let's say it's the dead of winter and you want to build a compost pile, but you don't have any green grass. That is where you use something called cottonseed meal. And it is this. I don't know how old this is. I've carried this around for years. Look at this. Now I'm going to make a big mess. Okay. This is cottonseed meal, and this is just straight nitrogen, which is what you need from your yard trimmings, from your lawn scraps. So if you want to pass that around, if you want to take a whiff of it, you don't have to if you don't want to. It's kind of iffy, huh? None. It just kind of doesn't smell amazing.
Well, where do you get it?
You can get it at any Callaway's, Foreman's, any kind of garden center, or a feed store will have it also. So that is your substitute for nitrogen. Okay, so let's talk about building the pile. So you've got your grass and you've got your leaves in an ideal situation, right? So now you need mass. We've gathered all this stuff. You need to have enough materials to fill a bin that is 1 cubic yard. This is not. This is not. My compost bins all got tossed away during the pandemic at my previous job, or somebody else is enjoying them. So this is just a representation of a 3 by 3 by 3 compost bin. Okay? Now, would you mind coming up here and helping me? What is your name? Xavier. Would you mind coming up here? You're going to be adding my water. Okay? All right. So we're going to pretend that we've pulled this hose over here because you need to put your compost bin where it's easily accessible by water. Okay? Okay, so Xavier's got that. He's going to be adding the water. So the first thing you do is you open up your leaves and you throw in a bag of leaves. So you're shaking it in and you're adding water. Sound effects? There you go. So you're adding water as you're dumping this in. And as I'm dumping it in, I'm shaking it so that it breaks it up, and that adds air. Because we want the bugs to come in here and start munching away and partying and having a great time. And they need food, materials, air, and water, right? So then he's adding the water as I'm shaking that in. And then you're going to get, I have no idea what this is called, but it's a claw thing with a long handle. A what? A garden fork? Okay, yeah, we'll go with that. So we need to make sure that all the leaves have water on them. The smaller the pieces, the better. So keep doing the water, and we're just going to move this around and make sure that everything is wet, okay? So now the next thing we're going to do is we're going to put in the grass. The grass will not need as much water because it already has a high moisture content. And this is called layering. Of course, when we're finished, the layers really aren't there. But it's just to make sure that you've switched that back and forth and you're mixing it. Otherwise, if you put all grass and all leaves, nothing will happen. Or it won't happen well. And the last thing you want is for this not to go well. Okay, so you're adding the grass. I've added the grass. Shake, 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 shake. There you go. Adding the water. All finished, and now I'm going to go in and I'm going to mix that up and make sure everything is wet, and then I'm going to add more leaves. Got it? Perfect. Thank you so much, Xavier. You're huge help. Okay, so now we have built our pile. You start with the browns, the carbon, then you do the greens, the nitrogen, and you just keep layering until it is full. Now, what do you do if you are using one of your substitutes? Right? That cottonseed meal that's going around, that does not take up any space, does it? So what do you do? What could you do to make up for that lack of material? What do you need to do? Any ideas? If this is the nitrogen, did it make it over here? Yes. Oh. So, doesn't take up any space. So now you need twice as much carbon because you're building it in the wintertime. You don't have any nitrogen. You're going to use this instead, but you still need that volume. You still need that 1 cubic yard. So now you're going to have twice as many leaves, but your neighbors aren't with the program yet. And you can just go take their leaves that they have unceremoniously set out for the garbage man, right? So you go get those leaves, but you're still going to layer it. And you're going to do a bag of leaves, and then you can do 3 small coffee cans of the cottonseed meal or 1 big one. And I really recommend just doing 3 small ones, but you're still going to have to get it wet. So you're still going to need that second person to be getting it wet the whole time, because now you really don't have any nitrogen that has a moisture content to it. Leaves take a lot of moisture so that everything is covered so that all the bugs will come in and do their job.
And green water, we take care of that.
The what?
Green water, we take care of that.
The green water?
Water held in plants, around plants, I would say.
Okay. Yeah, sure, why not? Sure, why not? Why not? So you've got this. Now the thing is, you can build a compost pile anytime you want. In the winter, it's amazing because you will actually see the steam coming off of it. About 2 days after you build it, all these bugs and all these microbes are heating it up. And that's why it's called hot composting. And that's what breaks down the weed seeds in there, is if you get it at a really high temperature over and over and over again. But you should still be pretty cautious about what you put in there. You know, if it's a really bad weed, I mean, I don't know if there's probably a good weed or a bad weed, but just be cognizant that if you don't get it hot enough several times, you will be perpetuating those weed seeds.
So are you churning it every?
Yes. So, okay, so we have our materials, we have our mass, we have our water, our air. Yes, Xavier.
What type of bugs?
Oh, that's next. Okay. So we have, and then the air and water and time. How much time do you need? With hot composting, it is all determined by the temperature. This is a Rio Temp 16-inch composting thermometer. It's in the back of the workbook, like the next to last page, how much it is, how much through Amazon, I think. So you need to keep a chart, Excel spreadsheet, whatever, and you're going to start charting the temperature of your compost pile. So every day, you are going to go out and you're going to put this right in the middle of your compost pile, and the temperature is, you're just going to watch that temperature start to rise. So what's happening in there? Well, while it's still cold, you know, before the microbes get in there, the physical decomposers are getting in there and munching. These are the bugs that live in your yard. And I think I have pictures of a couple of them on pages 8 and 8, page 8, the non-bacterial composters. So pill bugs, I think is what we call them here in Texas. Worms, not going to see many worms. Centipedes, just really any kind of physical decomposer. There's really, I don't want to say there's no bad ones, but I guess there are. Nematodes, springtails. The most fun thing that you're going to see is actinomycetes. And that's not really a bug, it's more of a growth. It leaves a white, thin film. It looks a little bit like mold, but it's not. It's really beautiful. That is breaking down your materials. So you see all of those things, you know that you've done it right, okay? And then as it starts to heat up, you know you've done it right. So now you are going to keep watching the temperature, And this is when the microbes come in. And so on page 7, you can look at the temperature from the thermometer, and you can tell exactly who is in your compost bin and what they're doing. So as it's starting out, the first wave, the first day or two, it's going to be your physical decomposers. Then your microbes are going to come in. And as they start to heat it up, the physical decomposers are going to leave because they don't like the heat. And so the first wave is called psychrophilic. And these guys work up to like around 55 degrees. The next one, as it starts to heat up, the next round coming in, it's called mesophilic. Meso, middle, right? Mesophilic. And they work between about 70 and 90 degrees. Now, the thermophilic, thermo, heat, yeah, they are the rock stars who are really making the compost, the breaking down of the materials happen. So they can go up to about 160 degrees. That'd be amazing if you could go out there, you know, in the middle of January and you've got all this steam coming off of your compost pile and it's 160 degrees. That'd be fabulous. So you wanted to get it up to that temperature. It's going to take a few days, just depending on, you know, some exterior things that are out of your control. As the temperature starts to drop, that is when you are going to turn the pile. So how do you turn the pile? My advice is when you are purchasing a bin, get a bin that has no bottom to it and that you can lift up off the pile. Because while this has been happening, the materials have started to shrink. So they have shrunk away from the walls of your container. And now you can lift it up, and you're going to set it next to your pile. And would you like to help me? What is your name? Sophia. Sophia, would you mind doing water?
Yes.
Okay. So now we've got all of our materials here. And now we have our empty bin. So turning the pile, we're just going to take this material and I'm going to, and really a yard fork works better for this. This is really good for just mixing it around. A yard fork is like a pitchfork, but it's shorter. And I could not find one anywhere. I don't know. So you take your materials and I'm going to shake it. And while I'm doing that, there you go. So we're adding that in there. So I'm shaking. So what happens? What is happening when I'm shaking the materials in here? You're adding air. Yes, I'm adding air back in because the temperature went down because it got hot and they used up all the air in the water. There's still a bunch of materials, but now we have to add that back in for that temperature to go up again. So we've got this, and we're just going to, there you go. We're just going to move all that in there, and we're going to shake it really good. Perfect. Thank you so much, Sophia. So now we've done that, and we've moved it, all of the materials over here, and that temperature is going to go right back up again. You want to do that about 8 times. And it can take 8 weeks. It can be shorter. It just depends. And then once you're finished with that, you want it to set. Yes?
Just out of curiosity, underneath the box, since you've moved the box multiple times, would you want to just have, yes, exactly, since it's empty, is it okay to do this just on like a bare piece of grass?
Yes.
Kind of thing in
Yes.
your backyard, or
It's
do you
got to.
want it, like cardboard underneath? Or
No,
like that?
you want it to be the ground,
Okay.
so the bugs
Ah,
will come up and get into your pile.
so you kind of have 2 different spots you go back and forth on.
Yeah. Yep. You just keep trading it back and forth, just back and forth, and that way you don't have to worry about needing a large space. The biggest thing is making sure that that water hose can get over there, because it's a lot of work. You really need 2 people to build it and to turn it. I've tried to do it myself. It is not fun. It's not. Yes, Xavier.
This wouldn't increase like the amount of flies or like gnats and stuff like that in your.
No, because what did we not put in it? Food. Yep.
So does it need like a cover up, like in the cherry?
No. What picture has that? Oh, page 22. You've gone too far ahead. Oh, 22, that is a worm bin.
Oh, it's different.
Yeah, we're going to get to the worms. We're going to get to the worms. So, so yes, so you've built the pile. Now you're going to let it cure for about, I don't know, 4 weeks. It's really up to your comfort level. You just want to make sure that if you take this mulch and you put it somewhere, it's not going to heat back up again.
You mean, so once you've gone for 8 weeks, then you let it sit for 4 weeks and don't touch it?
Yep. And then it's curing, because the last thing you want to do is go spread it around in your front garden and have it heat back up and burn something, because it has it's high in nitrogen. So that could happen. Any questions about the compost? And it's really mulch.
I'm sorry if you already mentioned
Yeah.
this, but how do you know it's ready for you to put it, move the box and put it back and mix it?
Anybody? So Sophia's question is, how do you know when it's time to move it, to turn the pile? Yes.
When the temperature drops?
When the temperature drops, yes. So you're taking the temperature every day, and you are keeping track of it, and when it starts to go down, that means that all of the beneficial bugs and the microbes have used up all of the air and water. And now it is time for you to put air and water back in, but you're not adding any materials. You did that 1 cubic yard at the very beginning, and that's all the materials you're going to use. But if you do want compost, you can sift it, but you're not going to get a whole lot. It would take several rounds in order to get enough. I hate to say just go out and buy compost, but you're probably spending more money on mulch at your house than anything else. And you can make compost tea from this. I do not have instructions for compost tea in here, but you can do compost tea and have just liquid compost. And that's wonderful. I need to add that in there. I can't believe I forgot to put that in there. So mulch, I've also seen, and I am all about doing things on the cheap. I do not like spending money. I am such a tightwad. So I have seen people who take old door screens and that somebody's thrown away or whatever, and they set it over a wheelbarrow, and that's how they sift their compost. They just dump that on there and just shake it, and then the compost falls through and the mulch falls off. So I'm all about doing it cheap. You're going to see a lot of stuff that says, you need to buy this, you need to buy this, and you just don't. You just don't. You don't need compost starter, ever. As long as you have the nitrogen and the carbon, that is all you need, in the air and the water and the time. Let's see. Any other questions? Yes?
So how hot should it get?
How hot can it get? It can get about 160, 170 degrees Fahrenheit.
Is it ever dangerous?
No, it's not going to catch on fire. Because it's not going to catch on fire because the fire happens in large compost facilities when it's not wet enough. But here you're going to be adding water all the time, and it's not large enough. You don't have enough mass to generate anything like that. Right.
So, Pillows manure is a good source.
Of nitrogen, yes.
That's right. So we have some ranch land out in Texas. Does it need to be fresh? And that's a weird question.
I don't know. I would. It depends on the how much water content you want, I would say. And what do you want? What do you want to mess with? Do you want to handle fresh, or is it easier to handle dry?
Well, the cotton seed stuff is dry, and it seems like
Yeah, that makes sense. Nobody has ever asked me that before. That is hilarious. Because maybe most people just go, ooh, manure, no. But if you have ranch land, we're not going to aggravate any neighbors.
Right.
Yeah, I would not recommend it for an HOA subdivision. All right. So, but it is really, really good. It is really, really good. Any other questions about that? So you're making mulch. We keep saying it's about compost, and you are composting, but you are making mulch. Okay, and there is a section in here on, there's compost pile ingredients. What can and cannot put in here? So no cat or dog feces go in here. No diseased plants. No food scraps. No ash from charcoal or coal. So if you have a little barbecue, Weber, and you've barbecued and you have some, that does not go in here. But if you have dryer lint, that can go in here. That is a great source of carbon. Hair clippings. If you cut your hair at home, or if you go to your neighborhood salon and say, hey, can I have all your hair clippings that you sweep up at the end of the day? That is great nitrogen. It doesn't have a lot of volume, but it's a free source of these things. Newspaper, outdated. Pine cones and needles, you just need to make them small. You just need to shred them up. Sawdust, wood shavings, and weeds. Yeah, but you just got to make sure you get it hot enough over several times. So those are the things that you do and don't. Yes?
Could you say it again for everyone, just in case?
Sure.
The leaves are the carbon or the nitrogen?
The leaves are what color?
Brown.
And the browns are carbon.
Okay.
The green is your grass.
And so it'll be the nitrogen.
Be the nitrogen.
Gotcha.
Yes.
Just for clarity.
No, absolutely. You don't want to
we know
get
where to
those
place
back
it.
and forth, yes. And then on page 12 is some troubleshooting. So let's say it's not heating up. You're going to have to stick your hand in here and figure out what the problem is. Is it too dry? What do you have to do? You add water. What if it's too wet? Add more dry stuff. Yes, so more carbon, whether that's more leaves or more paper, to soak up that extra moisture. That is the only time you will add anything in here, is if something has gone wrong and you need it to solve a problem. Pile is dry. Oh, if you get fire, yes.
so. This says adapt materials to form a 3 foot by 3 foot by 3 foot, but then you also said 3 cubic yards.
1 cubic yard. 1 cubic yard, yes. I know, right? Trying to pull all the material for 9 square feet would be a pain. If it has a bad odor, you've got too much nitrogen in there. Put some carbon in there to soak that up. If you have fire ants, which happens, means it's gotten too dry. And one way you solve that, you will turn it and add water, and take dried molasses, which you can also get at a feed store, Callaway's, or any of those places. Probably get it on Amazon. Just pour it around the pile, around the perimeter of it, and that will keep out the fire ants. Yes?
Why molasses?
I don't have any idea. It's dried molasses. And for those of you who know Dr. Garrett, yes, he is kind of the dirt doctor. He knows all that is plants, trees, foliage, and Dried molasses is his solution for everything. I know, right? Yep. Got a toe fungus? Dried molasses. Yep. Fire ants? Dried molasses. I have no idea why. I have no idea. So those are here just to be helpful. Now, if you really, the Rodale Book of Composting. This has got more things, like do you put shellfish in here? You know, the just amazing lists of things, and it'll tell you whether it's carbon or nitrogen. I really recommend this. It's just really in depth, whereas this is super cursory. But it also, compost tea is in here. So if you want to do compost tea, it's in here. But this also has plans for how to make your own bin, how to build one, if you want to do that. And you could make it out of all kinds of different things. So, Rodale Book of Composting. I think in the back of the book, I think it's the 35th anniversary, 40th anniversary, something edition. This one's old. This one's from the 1990s. And there's also another book called Life in the Soil that is just really good, if you're interested in learning more about that. So, any questions about backyard composting? So the food, we only have about 15 minutes. Oh, we got 20 minutes. Okay. Food is a whole nother problem. But there are some really innovative ways that you can use those food scraps to make true compost and really excellent compost, really robust. So, this has got some compost uses. Got that. Okay, so you can, starting on page 16, you can bury your food in your yard. If you've got a kind of a garden where you've got like 3 rows and you are, what is the word I'm looking for? Switching it out. Thank you. Rotating your rows. You have one row where you've got the plants, one row where you're walking, and a third row where you are putting your food scraps. You just go down and you bury them really deep, and you just go down. And then the next year, you plant your plants where you put your food, and then you just rotate that over the years. That is a good way. Another way is to do the movable compost pile. You can do this with, there's lots of plans in the Rodale on how to do it in the 3-bin system, where you can do that. That's a pain. So much can still go wrong. The 2 best ways, there's one that's labor intensive and one that is not. The one that is not is, oh man, I didn't bring my bin. So you go to Amazon and you get a plastic or metal 13-gallon trash can. You make sure it has a locking lid, turn it over, and knock out the bottom. So if you have plastic, I just use a hammer and a screwdriver because it does not need to be pretty. I just bust it and then just rip out the bottom. So if you're doing metal, you probably need some kind of tool that I don't own. So just make sure you cut out the bottom. Then you find a place in your yard where you need nutrients. It does not need to be next to your back door, but that's the most accessible. So wherever you need nutrients, you go out, you dig a hole, and you place the trash can at least a third of it in the ground, third to half. And you bury it in the ground, and you put the dirt back around it, and you have just built a food digester. So now any pre-consumer food that is not meat, bones, oil, sauces, or dairy, pre-consumer scraps, apple cores, apple peels, orange peels, lettuce leaves, things like that. When my daughter was little, I'd have her, when she'd peel an orange, I'd have her put it in a paper towel and just leave it on the counter So I would take it out and put it in the food digester. So even the paper towel will decompose. You go out, you lift the lid off, you throw it in and you close it. And that's it. It will never fill up, and all of the beneficial bugs will come for houses away and come eat that material and then take it out throughout your yard. So when that part of your yard rejuvenates, you can pick it up, fill in the hole, and put it somewhere else. And you can have as many of these as you need. They're really pretty amazing. And it is the cheapest thing, and it's wonderful. It just works. It just works. So that's the food digester. Now, if you want to do something a little bit more educational, which, yeah, you can do a worm bin. I tried to get worms in time, and I wasn't, because, I got to order them FedEx. And I put it back there. So all you need to do is worm bin. You can get this book called Worms Eat My Garbage by Mary Applehoff, the late Mary Applehoff. I wish I'd gotten to meet her. She's just a fabulous woman. Worms Eat My Garbage. She walks you through the process of building a compost. I mean, not a worm bin. You just get a tote, not very big, this big, and you drill holes in it around the top, around the sides, because the worms need air. You get a bunch of damp bedding, and it used to be newspaper, but it's not anymore. So shredded paper, not cross-cut, strips of paper, old bills, junk mail, anything like, because the worms are going to eat, it's going to decompose. So if you want to be secure, it's the best way to do it. So you're going to do about half a bin full of bedding. You're going to moisten it. As you put it in there, you want it to be damp, right? Make it moist, put it in there, then pull it back, dump in at least a half a pound of worms, and cover it up. And then whenever you have food scraps, pre-consumer, that do not contain meat, bones, oil, sauces, or dairy, that can go in the worm bin. And the worms are going to eat that, and they're going to process it. And what you're going to get is called worm castings that are so high in nitrogen, they are amazing. It is fabulous stuff. This is worm poop, but it smells like a damp forest floor. And you can have this bin in your kitchen. Truly, as long as you don't put any of those 5 things in there, it is not going to smell. And those worms are not going to leave. It's only if you do something bad that the worms will be like, oh, I'm out of here. And they will leave the bin. So just saying, don't risk anything. Yes?
I have a question about worms.
Yeah.
I think some conversations I've had recently led me to discover that not all worms are native to our area. So you said you were going to order some. In my mind, I thought, hey, I'm just going to go down to the bait store by the lake, go grab some worms.
So, red wigglers are the ones that eat organic material. So now the brochure that you guys handed out, it says earthworms. Earthworms eat dirt. They do not eat organic material. If you build a bin and you put earthworms in there and a bunch of apple cores and orange peels, they will die because they do not eat organic food. But you can take red wigglers and put them in your yard and they will eat the organic material in the yard, in your soil. So, so that's the difference, red wigglers. And in the back of this, there is a source. Yes?
For the pre-consumer foods,
Mhm.
are eggs, like eggshells and stuff like that?
Eggshells, as long as you crush them up. Yep. I mean, I've had instructors tell me back when I was going through all this composting training several years ago, that I'd find worms curled up in the eggshell. No, you don't know. Just crush it up because it'll be there for months. The smaller you can make the materials, the faster they will decompose them. And these guys, y'all know about rabbits, right? Rabbits reproduce. These guys reproduce exponentially because they are hermaphroditic. Everybody has babies. So, and they only have to be, I think, 11 weeks, 8 weeks, I forget now. I should look that up. Before they are mature and can have their own babies. And they have little seeds, little sacs with about 3 to 5 babies in it. And if everybody's having babies, you're going to get a lot of worms. So what happens when you get all these worms? What I recommend is taking half and giving them to a friend. I mean, just scooping out half and putting it in another bin. Or wherever you need nutrients in your yard, scoop out half and put it in a hole. And these guys will do just fine in your soil. Now in here, it does have some ideas for harvesting. Now, I did put in here, because I just updated this like 2 weeks ago. On page 21, I realize there are some of you who will be determined to try to separate the worms from their castings. So I'm going to share those instructions for you just for grins, but I'm going to tell you none of these work. Because I've tried all of them, and I've tried them all at work, and it's all gone horribly wrong. So, but if you need something for your small children to do on a rainy day, it is fabulous, because it will be hours of playing with worms. But really the best way to do that is to just scoop out half the bin and put it in your garden or give it to someone else. Did you have any questions? Okay. Anybody have any questions? I love the worms. I love the worms. They don't make any noise. They stay put as long as the bin doesn't get too wet. If it gets too wet and water starts pooling in the bottom, what do they think is happening? They think they're going to drown, and they will leave the bin. If it's too dry, they will go in search of water, or they'll just shrivel up. I mean, it's no good if you get it. So you really need to monitor it, but you're adding food constantly, and you're just moving it around. Now, Mary, bless her heart, she had a system, and she would draw like 8 circles on the top of the bin, and she would weigh the material that she would put in, and she'd have, on this day you put it in this pot. I'm like, no, that's way more trouble than it's worth. Just pull back the bedding, throw some stuff in there, and close it up, and it just miraculously disappears. It is really amazing. But the smaller you can make the pieces, the better. So what do worms eat? They eat vegetable peels, coffee grounds, and filters. You could. You'd be better off just throwing those coffee grounds out amongst your roses. Tea bags, crushed eggshells, apple peels, and cores. They will also eat the bedding in the bin. So you have to add bedding throughout the process. And just make sure that it's moist, not too wet, not too dry. And then add some little bit of dry stuff on the top just to kind of soak up any extra moisture that may be in there. Lesson learned. One of my very first trainers warned us about worm stampedes, and we laughed at him. And he said, do not build your bin on a day that it is storming, thundering, or thundering for at least 3 or 4 days, because that affects the barometric pressure. And worms are very, very in tune with those things, and they think it's going to pour rain and they're going to drown and they are going to leave. So the very first worm bin I ever made, I was newly married. Bless his heart, he had no idea what I did. I build my bin in the living room. I have this huge 18-pound cat named Chester. Big cat. I make the bin it starts to thunder. I think nothing of it. I'm doing the dishes, whatever. And out of the corner of my eye, I see Chester with his nose to the ground, slowly just backing up. And I'm like, nothing scares Chester. I look, there are hundreds of worms crawling across the living room floor, chasing my cat. And who walks in the door? The new husband. What the heck? So yeah, I think we were divorced within a year of that. But that's fine. That's fine. Don't blame it on the worms. Don't blame it on the worms. But it does happen, and yes, it sounds ludicrous. It really, really does. But it is absolutely true. It was a great story, though. Yes.
So once you built it
Mhm.
and it thunders, do they do the same thing, or it's
No.
only when you built it?
It's just that very first, but once they are acclimated to their environment, they'll be fine. I have two aunts from Ohio who came down to visit, and my worm bin was in my kitchen dining room. The whole week they were there. And the morning I was taking them to the airport, I opened up the bin and I threw in something, and they said, "Oh, what is that?" I said, "It's my worm bin." They both screamed like little girls. And I was like, y'all, it has been here all week. You have walked past it, and it's just that. But my mom did the same thing. She would buy worm castings. I said, "I will build you a worm bin." She's like, "You are not bringing worms into my house." But you really can't have them outside, because if you have them, it's too hot or too cold. You know, Texas, you never know from day to day what the temperature is going to be. So that is the worm compost. That's how you handle food scraps. Just depends on how much effort you want to put into it. Suggested reading, here on the back, Worms Eat My Garbage, Rodale. I did not bring my copy of Backyard Composting, Your Complete Guide to Recycling Yard Clippings. But it's from 1992. But really, none of this really changes. And then there's supplies. So compost bin, compost thermometer, cold compost bin. You really don't need a bin, but if you just want something, you can just use chicken wire. Build your own. Instructions are in the Rodale Book of Composting. The sifter, if you want. I found them for between $19 and $30. You do not buy anything extra. Do not buy the biodegradable bags to put your lawn stuff in, because we're not going to throw away anything anymore, right? We're going to put it all in our compost bin. But tell everybody that landfills are not designed to decompose. They are designed to mummify. So they're spending extra money for these things that will sit in a landfill forever and ever and ever. When you are doing the food digester, or you're doing the trench composting, you do not need a compostable bag for that. It will not decompose. It is not getting hot. It needs to. The only way this is going to decompose is if it's in a commercial composting facility. Do not spend extra money on compostable anything. I've had this for about 15 years now. Now it's disintegrating. And then I picked this up at a conference. It was supposed to be for us to gather our materials before we took them out, and it just sits in my box at the back of the room. It really had no use. Oh, but they had a compostable bag in it. That was the selling point. I had a compostable. No, don't do any of those things. Have I covered everything? Oh, and if you have kids, they have activities. Really amazing activities for worms. You can learn a lot about worms. So Worms Eat Our Garbage is excellent. So, who has any questions? Yes.
Can you put grass and leaves into the food?
Can you put grass and leaves in there? I guess you could, but why would you? Oh. I mean, you really need to keep them separate, because otherwise, I don't know.
I was just wondering, in case you only want to build one of these and just like have it in like the food decomposter in the middle of like a garden or something like that.
Yeah.
And just put everything in there.
I wouldn't, because it would fill up. And the whole idea behind the food digester is it just never fills up because it's constantly, all these beneficial bugs are constantly decomposing it. Now the only thing is it only smells in the summertime when, I mean, it's really, really hot. But all you have to do is hold your breath. I mean, just open it up. Whoops, I got that backward. Open it up, throw in your stuff, close it, then you exhale, right? You don't want to do it the other way around in the summertime. But I mean, that's it. I mean, otherwise, it just doesn't smell unless you have put something very, very bad in there. No meat, bones, oil, sauces, or dairy. 5 things you never, ever put in a compost pile, any kind of composting, or a worm bin. Yes. Any other questions? Helpful? It's more of don't do this than anything else. But it's really very easy. You just have to kind of follow some rules. But none of it's hard. And it's great exercise. It's really good exercise. So thank you guys very, very much. It's been my pleasure to be here. And I hope to see you again soon. You bet.